Ken Dorsey said it best, if the locker room's fine, it's fine. But after that mime performance from Shedeur Sanders, there's no guarantee things are actually fine behind the scenes. The Cleveland Browns' third-string quarterback didn't just answer a question. He made the question irrelevant. Instead of responding to being benched behind Dillon Gabriel, Sanders turned the press conference into performance art. No words, just silence, expressions, and viral-ready drama. Pat McAfee was all in. He called it next-level trolling, the kind of media judo that makes headlines without a soundbite.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
McAfee's take was clear. This wasn't disrespect. This was strategy. But Rex Ryan? Absolutely not. He blasted the stunt on live TV, framing it as another example of why the NFL's culture is slipping away from focus and toward foolishness. Two very different reads on the same 30-second clip. And that clip didn't just go viral, it exploded. Within hours, Sanders was everywhere, despite not even holding the clipboard for the Browns' starting offense. He outshined Dillon Gabriel, the guy actually starting games, just by refusing to speak. Gabriel, by contrast, did everything by the book. Humble, calm, all about the team. He gave the kind of answer that coaches love, because it doesn't become a headline. But Sanders isn't trying to blend in. He's playing a long game. As the son of Deion Sanders, he knows the power of presence. The Sanders name demands attention. He's building a brand, even if it means walking the line between athlete and entertainer. And in today's NFL, that line is increasingly blurry. Teams want discipline, but they're also quietly tracking Instagram numbers, jersey sales, and engagement metrics. That's why McAfee sees potential. He understands the modern media playbook and sees Sanders using it in real time. But Rex Ryan represents the old guard, the coaches and execs who still believe that QBs should lead through quiet focus, not viral antics. Ryan's blow-up wasn't just about Shedeur, it was a reaction to a league that's changing faster than he's comfortable with. What makes it complicated is that Sanders isn't wrong. He's buried on the depth chart, short on tape, and needs to stay visible. In a league where third-stringers can vanish overnight, this might be the only way to stay in the conversation. But if the Browns' locker room sees it as a distraction, or worse, a mockery, then Ken Dorsey's warning comes back into play. Harmony matters. Antics only work when the room's still with you. This mime act might have been smart or it might have been selfish. Either way it worked. Every scout, analyst, and exec is watching him now. But visibility is only valuable if it leads to trust. That's the gamble. Shedeur Sanders is betting that relevance buys him a shot. If he's wrong, this becomes a punchline. If he's right, he just redefined how quarterbacks stay in the game. This wasn't about football. At least not just football. When Shedeur Sanders walked into that press conference and decided to say absolutely nothing, opting instead for a silent, slow-motion mime act that looked more like a TikTok skit than an NFL media appearance, he did something no third-string quarterback has done all season. He made himself the headline. And not just a trending moment. Not a flash in the pan. Shedeur hijacked the entire narrative of the week. He turned the spotlight away from the Browns' quarterback depth chart, away from Dillon Gabriel's long-awaited promotion and onto himself. With zero words. Just vibes. Just calculated, performative, viral-ready vibes. This is what the NFL has never been good at handling. Players who understand their own market value. Players who understand content. Players who control the narrative before a single snap is played. And that's why the moment exploded far beyond the Cleveland locker room. Because this wasn't about some quirky presser. This was about control. And the league, especially its traditionalists, doesn't like when players start rewriting the script. Pat McAfee got it immediately. On his show, McAfee loved it. He called Shedeur's mime response a beautiful troll job. McAfee saw the bigger picture. A third-string quarterback, buried on the depth chart, turning what should have been a throwaway question into a moment of cultural impact. He didn't just refuse to answer. He refused to play the game. And in today's sports media economy, that's not immaturity, that's strategy. According to McAfee, this wasn't just Shedeur being funny or flippant. It was smart. It was controlled. It was Shedeur controlling his narrative in a league where most players, especially ones as deep in the rotation as him, never even get a narrative. But that perspective? Not everyone shares it. Rex Ryan absolutely lost it. His reaction was immediate, aggressive, and on brand. He called the mime act disrespectful. He said Shedeur was embarrassing himself, and warned that stuff like this could destroy a locker room from the inside out. For Rex, this wasn't strategic, it was selfish, immature, dangerous. Rex didn't see the act as clever branding. He saw it as a red flag, a sign that Shedeur might be more interested in headlines than huddles. And to be fair, that reaction didn't come out of nowhere. The quarterback position has always carried expectations. Lead by example. Speak with purpose. Show humility. Focus on football, not attention. And Shedeur? He challenged all of that, without even speaking. This is where Ken Dorsey offered the only real middle ground. While McAfee celebrated the move and Rex melted down on air, Dorsey, a longtime NFL veteran and quarterback guru, kept the focus on one thing: the locker room. His take was simple. If Shedeur's teammates are fine with it, if the quarterback room stays aligned, then what the media thinks is irrelevant. But if anyone in the building sees it as a distraction, or worse as disrespect, then it becomes a problem. Because that's the line Shedeur is playing with right now. Not just between viral and risky, but between brand building and trust breaking. Because no matter how strategic the move is, no matter how many retweets it gets, football is still a team game. And if the locker room doesn't buy in, none of it matters. And that's the part NFL insiders are watching most closely. Because Shedeur's brand is already built. His last name is Sanders. His father is Dion. His social media presence is massive. His ability to go viral is proven. But what isn't proven? His ability to earn the faith of his teammates. To step up when it's not a joke, not a clip, not a meme, but a real moment under center. And that's what makes this moment such a high-stakes gamble. It's not just about what Shedeur did, it's about what comes next. If he keeps the locker room behind him, stays focused in meetings, and actually earns a role, the mime act becomes a legendary brand-building moment. A flex. A turning point in how NFL players navigate media. But if things go south, if trust fades, if teammates start rolling their eyes, if coaches see him as more of a content guy than a competitor, then this moment won't be remembered as clever. It'll be remembered as costly. That's the double-edged sword of being seen. The spotlight that keeps you relevant can also burn you when it shifts. This is where Dillon Gabriel's role matters. Because while Shedeur's mime act was going viral, Gabriel was doing something much less flashy, earning the starting job. And when he got it, he said all the right things. Grateful, focused, team first. A story about being ready and staying patient. The kind of soundbite NFL coaches love. Gabriel represents everything the league has always wanted in a young quarterback. Quiet confidence, dependability, leadership by example, no distractions, no drama. And that contrast is impossible to ignore. Gabriel is producing. Shedeur is trending. Gabriel is the starter. Shedeur is the story. And this tension between those two tracks, the traditional climb through hard work and humility versus the modern playbook of visibility and brand, is exactly what the NFL is struggling to reconcile. Because let's not pretend this is just about Shedeur. This is bigger than one quarterback room in Cleveland. It's about how the league handles the next generation of players. Athletes who aren't afraid to blur the line between competition and content. Who understand that building a brand can create leverage. That a single viral moment can put you on the radar faster than a preseason stat line. Shedeur is playing a different game. One that the NFL hasn't fully figured out how to regulate. Because while the league is slowly embracing social media, it still expects players, especially quarterbacks, to conform to certain values. To speak when spoken to stay in line, to never, ever overshadow the team. But Shedeur's mime act? That was a full-blown challenge to that system. A moment that said, I know the rules. I'm just not playing by them. And the reaction proves that the league still doesn't know what to do with that energy. So what now? That depends on how Shedeur handles what comes next. If he continues to deliver in practice, builds trust with teammates, and shows he's more than a moment, this could end up being one of the smartest plays of his early career. But if the attention starts to outweigh the substance, if it starts to feel performative or inauthentic or like he's chasing content over chemistry, then it could mark the beginning of a slow fade into irrelevance. Because going viral is easy. Staying respected? That's the hard part. Either way, one thing is certain. Shedeur Sanders has put the league on notice. He's not going to disappear quietly. He's not going to play the backup role in the traditional sense. He's going to stay in the conversation, whether through his play or through moments like this. And if the NFL isn't ready for quarterbacks who understand both football and content, they'd better get ready fast. Because Shedeur's not the last one coming. He's just the first to mime it into existence. What's your take? Did Shedeur cross the line or rewrite the playbook? Is this the future of NFL branding, or a step too far from the game itself? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you're here for more sports drama, media showdowns, and the stories that turn silent moments into viral chaos, don't forget to subscribe. Because if the league is changing, we'll be here every step of the way to break it down. Loudly. Even if the players don't say a word. At this point, the NFL can't ignore it, even if it wants to. Shedeur Sanders has officially cracked the system. Not by lighting up the scoreboard. Not by leading a comeback win. But by doing what most players are terrified to even attempt. He turned the spotlight onto himself without playing a single down. And not only did it worked so well it shook the media cycle for an entire week. And that's saying something in a league where headlines usually revolve around injuries, suspensions, and playoff seeding, not third-string QBs silently pantomiming their way into virality. Let's be real here. Shedeur Sanders didn't just respond to a press question. He controlled the narrative. He interrupted the traditional flow of NFL media coverage with one quiet, calculated move. And now, every analyst, player, fan, and executive has been forced to weigh in on a question that no one saw coming. Is Shedeur Sanders a disruptor, or a distraction? And maybe more importantly, is that a bad thing? Because here's the thing, while Shedeur's move was unconventional, it wasn't thoughtless. It wasn't chaotic. It was a deliberate choice to challenge the very structure of how NFL players are expected to behave, especially quarterbacks. Quarterbacks are supposed to be measured. Say, predictable. The brand ambassadors for the team, the ones who don't make waves unless they're celebrating a win or taking blame after a loss. But Shedeur walked in, zipped his lips, shrugged his shoulders and walked out. No apology. No clarification. No explanation. Just a moment designed to dominate every headline. And it did. But now the league is left to decide what it really values. Because while Dillon Gabriel, the newly promoted starter, was delivering a polished, team-friendly interview, Shedeur was delivering headlines. Gabriel said what quarterbacks are supposed to say. He talked about being ready, trusting the process, and earning his role through discipline and patience. His entire message was built on stability. And yet, it's Shedeur who took over the airwaves. That's the uncomfortable reality the NFL's old guard doesn't want to admit. In a media landscape where attention is currency, Shedeur got paid in full. The attention wasn't stolen. It was earned, through media savvy, brand awareness, and a deep understanding of how to stay relevant when you don't have the stat sheet to do it. And that's why Pat McAfee's take hit so hard. Because McAfee didn't just celebrate the move. He framed it. He reminded his audience that NFL quarterbacks are under constant, often unfair, scrutiny. That they carry the weight of billion-dollar franchises, legacy expectations, and non-stop media pressure. And that sometimes, the best way to cope with that pressure is to throw the playbook out the window and make people uncomfortable. McAfee didn't see a meltdown. He saw a message. Meanwhile, Rex Ryan was busy lighting matches. His rage was immediate and raw. He called Shedeur out, claiming it was disrespectful to the game, to the team, and to the entire quarterback tradition. In his eyes, quarterbacks don't joke. They lead. They show respect. They don't play for the camera, they play for the locker room. And if you ask Rex, Shedeur was setting a terrible precedent. But here's what Rex didn't consider, and what people like Ken Dorsey understand. Context matters. Dorsey's take, quiet, balanced, thoughtful, pointed to what really determines whether Shedeur's stunt will sink or stick. Locker room dynamics. If the guys inside the Browns facility are laughing, unfazed, or even supporting him, then this is nothing. A blip. A viral moment that lives online but dies in practice. But if teammates start side-eyeing him, questioning his focus, or feeling like he's prioritizing followers over football, then yeah, it becomes a problem. And no amount of McAfee praise can fix that. Because for all the media circus outside, football still happens inside the building. And inside that building, leadership matters. Which is what makes Shedeur's gamble so delicate. On one hand, he's building a brand. On the other, he's risking the one thing quarterbacks can't function without: trust. If the team believes in him, the media circus doesn't matter. But if even one key player or coach starts thinking Shedeur's more interested in being viral than being valuable, that's when careers stall before they start. So why take the risk? Because for Shedeur Sanders, staying invisible isn't an option. He's not just some random backup trying to find a roster spot. He's Shedeur Sanders, son of Dion. A player with legacy, expectations, and a social media presence that dwarfs most NFL starters. He knows how the game is played. And he knows that third-string quarterbacks don't get mic time unless they do something that demands it. So he demanded it with silence. And that's the kind of disruption that forces the league to reckon with its identity crisis. The NFL wants players to build their brands, but only within the confines of tradition. Be flashy but not too flashy. Be outspoken but only after you've proven yourself. Be yourself but only if that self aligns with team culture. But Shedeur is testing the limits of that balance. He's proving that visibility isn't just for the stars. That you don't have to start games to start a conversation. That even without speaking you can be the topic. The question now isn't whether Shedeur was right or wrong. It's whether the NFL is ready for a player who's both quarterback and content creator. Who treats the media not as an obligation but as a stage. Who doesn't just answer questions, but challenges the way they're asked. If this pays off, Shedeur becomes a blueprint. A model for how athletes on the fringe can leverage personality, presence, and platform to elevate themselves. But if it backfires? If coaches lose patience or teammates lose trust? He could become the cautionary tale. The guy who mistook virality for value. That's what makes this so high stakes. Because the NFL isn't just watching. It's taking notes. Every player with a social media team, a podcast, or a YouTube channel is watching how this unfolds. They're asking, can I be myself in this league? Can I build a brand and still earn respect? Can I challenge the system without losing my spot? And Shedeur? He's answering those questions in real time. He might succeed. He might fail. But either way, he's not disappearing quietly. And in a league that so often demands silence until it's your turn, he's making it clear. He's not waiting for permission. At this point, Shedeur Sanders is more than a quarterback, he's a case study. A walking, brand-building, media-shifting case study in what happens when you stop asking for attention the traditional way and start manufacturing it yourself. Because what Shedeur did wasn't a slip-up, a breakdown, or a joke gone too far. It was a calculated injection of personality into a system that, frankly, still resists anything outside its carefully constructed formula. And now, with the NFL and its entire analyst class torn in two, the league is being forced to confront something it's managed to avoid for a long time, the death of the quiet QB archetype. Let's not act like this conversation is new. We've seen the cracks forming for years. The era of the yes sir, no sir quarterback was already being challenged by guys like Cam Newton, Baker Mayfield, and even Joe Burrow with his now iconic draft day swagger and unapologetic confidence. But Shedeur didn't challenge the mold by what he said, he did it by what he didn't say. And that silence? It spoke volumes. Now let's get to the core tension here, performance versus perception. Dillon Gabriel, newly minted starter, has done everything right. Said all the right things. Put his head down, focused, stayed humble, kept the narrative on the team. That's the model the NFL prefers. Reliable, no-nonsense leadership that doesn't call attention to itself. But as of now, Gabriel's name isn't trending. He didn't break social media. He didn't dominate morning talk shows. He didn't make the locker room the story of the week. Shedeur did. And that alone is enough to make some people extremely uncomfortable. Because it begs the question, is traditional quarterback behavior still the best way to survive in the NFL? That's why Pat McAfee's reaction landed the way it did. McAfee's not just a former player, he's a media force. A personality who understands that in today's sports economy, relevance is everything. And from McAfee's point of view, Shedeur's mime act wasn't just hilarious, it was smart. A perfectly executed bit of media manipulation in a system that doesn't know how to handle personality from anyone not already wearing the C on their chest. McAfee knows what a viral moment does to a player's stock. It keeps them in the room, in the conversation, in the market. And when you're sitting third on the depth chart, that kind of visibility isn't optional, it's oxygen. But to someone like Rex Ryan, it's gasoline. Rex's entire career was built inside the structure Shedeur's moment challenged. Rex believes in football culture, in chain of command, in respect for the game, the team, the role. So when Shedeur skipped the verbal script and started pantomiming like he was auditioning for a Netflix special, to Rex that wasn't creativity, it was chaos. That's what made his reaction so explosive. It wasn't about one moment. It was about a player stepping outside the boundaries Rex spent his entire career defending. And when those boundaries are tested by someone who hasn't earned it yet, that's when old-school NFL guys start to lose their grip. But Rex isn't alone. Plenty of coaches, execs, and media veterans feel the same way, even if they're not saying it out loud. They want quarterbacks who follow protocol, who don't rock the boat, who answer questions, not perform them. Which brings us to the elephant in the room. Is Shedeur Sanders playing football, or playing media? The answer, frankly, might be both. And that's what makes this moment so complicated. Because Shedeur's not just a player. He's a brand. He's the son of one of the most media-savvy athletes in history, and he's entering the NFL at a time when the line between player and personality has never been thinner. Whether it's through viral clips, podcast appearances, or coordinated social media campaigns, the modern athlete is no longer expected to just play. They're expected to engage, to build an audience, to sell themselves as more than just a jersey number. And Shedeur, unlike most third-string QBs, is doing just that, successfully. But the success comes with risk. Because the same media storm that boosts your name can also define your reputation in ways you can't control. And for Shedeur, the mime moment, funny as it was, now lives in the archives. Coaches will remember it. Front offices will weigh it. And fans will either laugh along or roll their eyes depending on how the next move plays out. Because that's the key. The next move. If Shedeur follows this up with professionalism, good practice habits, support for his teammates, and maybe even earns himself a few solid preseason snaps, the mime becomes a moment, a clever, culture-defining moment that adds to his mystique. But if he gets caught in the cycle, trying to top the last viral moment, chasing buzz, alienating teammates in the process, that mime becomes the first red flag in what could be a very short NFL career. This is why Ken Dorsey's voice matters here. Dorsey, who's been around long enough to see how the league chews up and spits out young quarterbacks, made it clear, it's about team buy-in. If Shedeur hasn't lost the locker room, then this is just noise. If he has, then no viral moment can save him. Because behind every headline, every trending tweet, and every McAfee clip, the game is still the game. And you can't meme your way through a blown assignment or a busted read. Eventually, Shedeur will have to back up the brand with ball. That's what separates the flash from the foundation. And honestly, that's where this gets interesting. Because for all the talk of legacy, content, strategy, and control, Shedeur can play. He's talented. He has poise. He understands pressure. And he's got the kind of calm confidence you only get from growing up around the spotlight. The question is whether all that potential can survive the noise he's creating. Because the truth is, Shedeur doesn't have to be QB1 to win this game. He just has to stay relevant long enough for someone to give him a real shot. That's the long game. Build the brand. Stay in the room. Be too interesting to cut. And when the moment comes, deliver. If he pulls it off, he could reshape what it means to be a modern quarterback, not just in terms of play style, but in terms of presence. He could become the blueprint for a new kind of player. One who doesn't just embrace the spotlight but controls the lighting rig entirely. But if he fumbles it, if the antics outpace the output, then the league will treat him exactly how Rex Ryan wants them to, as a cautionary tale. A talented kid who confused content with commitment. So here we are, staring down the most bizarre quarterback controversy of the season, involving a player who hasn't even taken the field. And the stakes couldn't be higher. Because Shedeur isn't just fighting for a roster spot. He's fighting for a model. A future. A new kind of NFL where your personality is just as important as your passer rating. And in that future, silence can be just as loud as a soundbite. So what do you think? Did Shedeur redefine what it means to lead or just step out of line? Is this calculated genius or short-term buzz with long-term consequences? Let us know in the comments. And if you want more no-fluff breakdowns of the stories that shake the league without a single snap, subscribe now. Because if this is the start of a new NFL era, Shedeur Sanders just mime walked through the front door.